Good evening, everybody. I think it's evening for everybody. Sometimes, well, actually, in Australia, it might be morning. I don't know. But here, where I am in sunny Florida, it is evening. And where my friend Kay is, as you can see, there she is. It's also evening. It's a little later. I think there's a 4-hour difference until Sunday when you turn the clocks back, and then there's going to be excuse me, a 5-hour difference, as usual. We got a bit confused because all the clock thing going on. Anyway, here I am. It is cracking up. First of all, before we begin, I'd like to say hello to Gregor, who is always, as always, standing to my right side. I'd like to say hi to Chris, our great facilitator. Hi, Chris. And also welcome once again my best friend. my best and longest standing friend.
Yeah.
I think I've known you longer than anybody else, actually.
Maybe.
Is my friend Kay from England. And so we were talking earlier on about the topic of what shall we talk about today, because cracking up is about just chilling out and talking about whatever we feel like talking about. And it occurred to me, a couple of weeks ago, I was at the airport heading out to New York, and the plane was delayed, everything was delayed. Sitting in the airport, we were delayed. And I happened, because my knee had blown out, I happened to be in a wheelchair. And I think that, I know there are lots of people who use wheelchairs, but I know that majority of people do not use wheelchairs. But it's very interesting, that bird's eye view that we have when we're in a wheelchair and everybody's going on with their lives around us. They're going and getting coffee, or they're going with their families, or they're on the phones, or so and so going on here, there, and everywhere. And because we had been taken off the plane and we were waiting, and it was hours later, not one single person in the airport even acknowledged me, didn't look at me, didn't smile at me, didn't say hello to me. Now you might think, well, did you do the same? Did you say hello to them? Did you smile at them? Well, I'm always smiling, and I'm always saying hello to people, and I'm always nice when I can. But I think that, sometimes in certain situations we become invisible. And we're going to talk about that a little bit today. One of the times when we become invisible to the rest of the world, and certainly, and I've had this experience before, because I remember a few years ago I'd flown into Amsterdam, and from Amsterdam I was then taking a plane to England, and I was left behind. They changed the gate, and I was in a wheelchair. I'd broken my foot. I couldn't barely even hobble. And 1 minute, the announcement came over the tannoy, everyone at gate so-and-so needs to go to gate such and such. The next thing, literally everybody left. I was sitting in the wheelchair. Nobody came to me. Nobody came to push me. There was nobody there to ask, can you help me? I had a big bag on my knee. I had another bag by my side. There was no way I could move myself. Absolutely no way. And I can remember occasionally somebody would go by and I'd shout, excuse me, can you help me, please? walking by. And it was a horrible experience. Finally, somebody who, not working for the airport, somebody took pity on me and said, which gate you need to go to. And they took me there, and they left me in a line, and there were masses and masses of people ahead of me and loads of people behind me. And there was this one guy put his case that he was carrying on top of my head to, to lean. He was behind me. He put his case, he leaned his case on top of my head, and I was literally bowed over while he was trying to talk to somebody he knew who was ahead of him. And he was using me as a support case or whatever. And I couldn't get out from under him. I was completely stuck, and I can remember tears streaming down my face at this point because I truly was invisible. I was absolutely, truly invisible. And luckily, at some point, there was a woman sort of 2 rows over. She took one look at me, she saw the tears, and she was British, actually. Reached over and grabbed my hand, and she said, "Are you okay?" All I could do was blubber and shake my head and say no. And eventually they found someone who worked at the airport to help me, but it was the most demeaning,
very
and awful experience to be to not even be visible. And people think I exaggerate that story, and I can tell you that there is no exaggeration to that story. And the way it made me feel was like I literally, people were literally climbing over me. This guy behind me was trying to climb over me, trying to climb over the wheelchair so that he could get closer to whoever it was up ahead of him, irregardless of the fact that there I was with a big plaster on my foot, a big heavy thing on my foot, and my walking stick. It was just like
disgusting, isn't it?
And there were people all around him, and not one person said to him, "Hey, what do you think you're doing?" Or "Hold on a second." It just,
and it's becoming like that a lot.
And this is why I say just a while ago, and it was the same sort of thing, and at one point, because we were hours and hours waiting, some woman brought a whole load of snacks and bottles of water and so on, and she's sort of on the tannoy saying, "Anybody want snacks? Just come in." And mass exodus towards where the snacks were, and not one person is saying to me, "Can I help you? Can I do anything for you?" It's stunning. It's when is it? Maybe it's always been the case. Maybe it's always been like this, but I don't think so.
No,
when
I don't either.
Do we think that we became a society of ignorance? Ignorance is bliss. Let's not deal with the elephant in the room, which is the woman in the wheelchair who can't do anything for herself. When did it become? When did we become, as a society, so focused on our own selves, our phones, our inability to see anybody but us? When did that happen? And I think in airports, of course, it's exaggerated tenfold because there's nowhere for you to go. So you see it all the time. You see kids climbing over other people's suitcases, and the parents don't say anything. It's like, let's pretend that it's just us. Let's just have tunnel vision. It's just us. Let's just take care of us, and let's not bother about anybody else, and let's not worry about anybody else. And I know that you've had some of those experiences as well, Kay.
Yeah, but I mean, as a child, I was quite loud. I've always been quite loud as a bright star. I think I'm quite out there, and at some points quite demanding and quite vocal. But I do remember I do remember at school and growing up in small towns in England, feeling an unjust sense that however loud you shout, nobody actually wants to listen or hear. But not just as a child, but actually as I grew older. I'm now nearly 70, I think, next year, maybe this year even. And so I think it was in the mid 50s, early to mid 50s, I really began to understand that there's somebody on the
When you were in your mid-50s,
yes, yes.
mid-50s,
Yeah, no, when I was in my mid 50s,
yeah,
suddenly being aware that, yeah, I actually, sorry, hello, hello, I'm here. Yes, this is who I am talking now. But nobody was really interested because I didn't really match up to what they thought they should be talking to, or whether I was invisible. That was it.
right.
The sort of a certain person in a certain place becomes invisible if you're not giving your audience or those around you something to grab onto and be interested in. You become grey, tired, invisible. So therefore you then have to jump on that bandwagon of becoming more vibrant and interesting. And I just couldn't be bothered with that. I wasn't interested in trying too hard. So I found other ways around it. And somebody said on the chat, women become invisible. Well, I think men do as well. I think a lot of people can't keep up and don't want to keep up with the expectations that a lot of social media and a lot of televisions and screen time pushes at us.
I think, well, I mean, I would not describe myself as a quiet person, although
No.
I can be very quiet when I want to be. It can be, and I like to be respectful, and I'm polite. I mean, even when I've been in situations in a hospital, I might be in absolute agony. Somebody's doing something to me, and I might be in absolute agony, and the next thing I know, I'm saying, "Oh, I'm so sorry," or "Please, can you do this?" I don't know what's happening with the camera. We keep switching around a bit, but I'm going to ignore it. But even I mean, I was when they were bringing out the snacks. I was waving at people. Hello, excuse me. Hello, excuse me. Could somebody help? And nothing. And nothing. And it was as if people zone out and they get into
Yeah,
their zone and don't. And
yeah,
it's almost as if I don't know. It's almost as if let's not look at anything else. Let's not see anything else. No, nothing else is my business. That person
it's fear.
is not my business.
Yeah,
That person who's struggling to carry a bag, that's not my business. It's almost as if I don't know if it's a protective thing that
yeah.
people have.
They don't want to be put out. They don't want to alter their trajectory of where they're going and what they're wanting. They're completely selfish, and so many people are
It,
completely selfish in what they
it
think
is.
they need.
It is. Excuse me. It is really stunning to me. When people can't even stop and say hello to someone or smile,
Yeah,
or need any help, or is there anything I can do for you, or that seems to have just completely, I hope it's not eradicated altogether, but when you're in those situations, it is. I can remember also going back a few years. I was in a hospital waiting room, and next to me, there was a lady with a young boy in a wheelchair. Um, and this lady was pushing the wheelchair, and the nurse came up and asking questions of the boy, and the woman pushing the wheelchair was having a conversation with the nurse, and never once did they look at this
uh,
person or ask for an opinion of this kid. Are you okay? Do you need anything? And There was no inclusion of the
No.
person who we deem to be helpless.
That's very common, isn't it?
And
Very
at some
ignorant.
point, and I could see this kid, he was about 14 or 15, and I could see him, his eyes were darting back and forth from one to the other as they're having this conversation. And at some point, I couldn't stand it any longer. And I didn't even know them, but I just thought, I cannot let them behave as if he's not a non-existent person. I cannot continue to listen to this and to allow him to be invisible. So I actually interjected, and I reached across and I said, "Excuse me," and I said to this boy, "Can I ask you, how are you feeling? Would you like?" And he started talking. He was perfectly capable of talking, perfectly capable of responding, perfectly capable of having his own opinion about things. But these people had acted like they were talking over him. And it was shocking to me because, I think we just tend to do that. We talk over the people we think either don't have anything to say or are not important enough to listen to. And it just strikes me as being really sad. I know that you worked with disabled kids at one time.
Yeah.
And I know you have some stories
Oh,
about that too.
there's been so many schools and so many places and prisons as well, and reform schools and pupil referral units and damaged children.
You've worked in all of those places.
Yeah, yeah. But physically, mentally, emotionally damaged people, adults and children, or children who should really be adults but are still children in their minds, and adults who should be adults and are really only children in their minds. And there was a lot of crossover in all of these incidences. But the common theme running through it all was so many of them were hoping to be invisible, to escape.
Oh, really?
To escape trauma, to escape responsibility, to escape normal everyday life that they didn't want to face. But most telling were the young teenage lads or older teenage lads in prisons, in high and low offending prisons, category prisons, who had made an art of becoming invisible of avoidance of any trouble or trauma. So they would find ways of holding the bodies, of not saying certain things, of making no eye contact. They became shadows. And so in a reverse way, then my job was as art tutor and other basic skill tutors, was to try and get them to become visible and get them to have a voice and use the voice, and regardless of what they did or hadn't done, was to try and get them to acknowledge their self-worth, and to find that invisibility wasn't a cure. It wasn't the way to go about it, and to stand firm. And that was one of the biggest things that I learned in working with
I think, though, that the problem is as much with the adults who would prefer those kids to be invisible.
Yes.
Because then they don't have to deal with them.
That's right, it is, yes.
As we're back to the airport.
Yes.
The guy walking to get a coffee and some snacks would much prefer for me to be invisible, because God forbid he should take a minute of his time to say to me,
doesn't want it.
Can you get anything? I mean, and it's, I don't know. It's a society is I think becoming more
very selfish
and more just very much just like that. So, Chris, is there anybody there, or are we just chatting away to ourselves? Do we have any comments or questions so far?
Yeah, we have a number of comments in the chat room. Let's see. Judith says, have we become invisible to others? I think most, quote, older people are invisible.
Mhm.
She says, I don't get out much these days, but most people I have observed seem to avert their eyes so they don't have to make contact. It's so sad for all of us.
Yes, it is.
It is.
I mean, when I'm in a, I went to the supermarket today, and I was at the meat and cheese counter, and there was a woman in front of me, and there was a whole line of people behind me, and there was only this one guy working, and he was complaining and moaning, and really just, "Well, I've only got an hour to go. Thank God, I've only got an hour to go," and all this and that. And I was happy. I said to him, "I'm not in a hurry." I was next up to this other person. "I'm not in a hurry. Take your time." And he served her with some ham, and then he said to the rest of the people waiting, "Anybody want ham? If you do, I'm not going to put it away." And the woman next to me, behind me, said, "I do." And I said to her, "Go ahead." And I said to him, "Just go ahead and serve her. I can wait." Like, and
Uh,
at one point I smiled to him and I said, "Life is so too short to be miserable. It's so short to be unhappy. And anyway, we've only got an hour to go. And then, you can do something, do something funny." It wasn't appreciated by him whatsoever. He just didn't get it. I don't know what it is about people, but if you go up and you smile at someone, they look at you as if you're like they're shocked.
bonkers. You're bonkers.
Well, maybe I am, but
Anyway.
anyway.
I can remember being taken for a walk through a village as a kid by my auntie. I must have only been 4 or 5, and I remember clear as day waving to everybody and shouting, "Hello, good
Yes.
morning!" Like,
That's
and
what you
she was mortified.
Yeah.
She was, shh,
She was upset.
she was upset with me. I still do it.
But that's how neighbours used to be. But it seems,
Yeah.
anyway. So, Chris, more comments, questions, etc.
Yeah, Eric's saying hello to you both, and he says, none of that terrible nonsense would have happened to you if I were there. You'd have been well protected. They would have been put
Oh,
in place.
I absolutely know that. Definitely, yes, definitely. But it's not. It really. I'm telling the story. Not. It's not about me. It's about all of those people who are in those situations where
Yeah.
they get completely ignored.
Sidelined.
Nobody, I mean, everybody, I was sort of looking around me and people sitting in chairs, they're on their phones, they're on their iPads, and nobody's speaking to anybody. Have you noticed that? Nobody speaks to anybody anymore. Nobody's friendly. Nobody says hi. Nobody says, do you need help with that? No, it's like, let's keep our heads down and keep ourselves to ourselves. And of course, I'm a big troublemaker because I'll go into a supermarket or whenever, Kay, you've been with me, I'll go anywhere and I'll say hi to anybody and I'll start talking to people and I'll, and occasionally I've embarrassed Samantha because of it. But I mean, we are this amazing human race, and we've seemed to become more and more and more isolated within our own self.
I think people are so easily fearful and mistrustful, and it's a bit of a disease, isn't it? Really, it's sort of a.
I think it is a disease. I think it's a disease of the human race because none of us wants to know anybody anymore.
No.
you know, do you remember years ago in England? I mean, you'd be in a row of houses and everybody would be in others' houses, they'd be in
Yeah.
other people's businesses as well.
But there was a trust, wasn't there? There was
but
a
yeah, and
there was community trust as
there
well.
was never a problem if you had to go somewhere. I had to go to a doctor's appointment. One of the neighbours would have the kids. You go, I take the kids. Nobody questioned it. That's how it was. And now it's so much the absolute opposite. I mean, I have neighbours where I am, and I can't remember the last time I saw my neighbours on to the left of me, or actually, I have great neighbours next door to me, but unfortunately, they don't live here full time. But they're great, and when they come, we hang out, we chill out, we get together. They're really great, but it's unusual. And they don't have anything to do with any other neighbours, not because they're not friendly. They're friendly, but people see people see you walk down the driveway and they scurry back into their house.
You stood there waiting for them. They'd wonder why you were waiting to say hello. Yeah.
And yesterday I was sort of, with whenever it was, yesterday or the day before, with Samantha lives in an apartment building. Nobody speaks to anybody.
Oh,
It's
dear.
like, nobody. It's almost oh no, no.
They say it's the English disease, don't they? But it's not, is it? It's everybody.
I think the Brits are the most friendly and chatty, but I've not been back for a while, so I don't know if the disease is worldwide, or I don't know what it is, but it's sad. I think it's so sad. We've lost the art of conversation. We've lost the art of being friendly. We've lost the art of neighboring. We've lost the art of being kind to each other, because you can't be kind to somebody that you don't want to speak to, or you don't want to know. Just let's keep my head down and keep walking.
Yeah.
It's sad. Chris.
All right. Wayne says he thought high school was one of those times where invisibility really stands out. And then he also says, I saw a woman being invisible. I always try my best to go sit with her.
Oh.
I'd like to know the high school. If you got a high school comment, I would love to know that. Years and years ago, and in fact, I think wasn't it UK who sent me this poem? Years and years ago, I was in my 20s, and there's this great poem. I might have talked about it before. It's a fantastic poem, and nobody knows who wrote the poem, and it's called I Will Wear Purple. And I wish I'd had it in front of me so I could read it to you. But basically, when I am old, the poem begins, when I am old, I will wear purple. I will take my cane and run it along the railings and make noise. I will steal flowers from other people's gardens. And it's all about, the poem is all about, this woman, when I am old, I'm going to do all the things that I was never allowed to do as a kid. I'm going to do all of those things that are frowned on when we're grown-ups, when we're adults. Mm-hmm. And it's a great poem. I'll have to see if I can find it out for you. And I'm not sure if it was UK or somebody else actually sent it to me. And it made me sad because I've known this poem for so long, as I say, in my early 20s. But when I read the poem, I remember that it made me laugh because, when I'm old, I'm going to sit on the curb and swing my legs.
Yes.
It's like,
do all the things you're not.
When I'm old, I'm going to basically be a really naughty girl, and I'm going to do all the things that, I was never allowed to do.
Yeah.
I remember reading this poem and clearly thinking, why why will I have to wait until I'm old to do these things? Why would I want to wait until I'm old? And so having read that in my 20s, I thought the best thing I can do is to get in as much practice as I possibly can. and and I'm gonna wear purple, not literally purple, but I'm gonna wear purple. I'm going to stand up and I'm going to stand out and I'm going to have a voice and I'm going to say the things that I want to say to people. And I'm going to be respectful, but nobody's going to tie me down. And I think that when we're kids, we're younger, we have all those rules and regulations we have to abide by. And then, as we get older, we have to conform, don't we, to society's idea of what is good behavior and what is not good behavior. And so, I feel very fortunate that I read that poem early on because
Well,
I've been practicing and practicing all my life so that when I am old, if that ever happens at all, when I am old, I'm definitely going to wear purple and I won't care.
Are you going to learn to spit?
That's another thing. When I am old, I'm going to, what is it? I'm going to.
It says here, it says, I shall go out. Okay. When I am an old woman, I shall wear purple with a red hat that doesn't go and doesn't suit me, and I shall spend my pension on brandy and summer gloves and satin sandals, and say we've no money for butter. I shall sit down on the pavement when I'm tired and gobble up samples in shops and press alarm bells and run my stick-along public railings and make up for the sobriety of my youth. I shall go in slippers in the rain and pick flowers in other people's gardens and learn to spit. You can wear terrible shirts and grow more fat and eat 3 pounds of sausages in one go. I've done that.
Me too.
Or only bread and pickle for a week. It's lovely, isn't it? It's lovely.
Is that it?
No, it goes on, but I've lost it at the bottom. Chris can read it out. Or only bread and pickle for a week. Hoard pens and pencils, beer mats and things in boxes. Oh, I do that anyway. But now we must have clothes and I can't read anymore.
Well, that's okay. But that's the gist of it. And if you'll find it, I'm sure you can all Google it. When I am an old woman, I will wear purple. Nobody knows who, but the sentiment is so great. And I think that, we should all, no matter how old or young we are, we should all try to wear purple, not necessarily that colour, but you get the gist of it. Purple is simply, I'm going to stand out, I'm going to be me, I'm going to do what I want to do, I'm going to have a voice. And I encourage my grandson to do this, albeit respectfully, because we don't want our kids running riot and upsetting other people, but we do want them to be respectful, but still we want them to be themselves, and we want them to find joy in being themselves. And I think that also is something I noticed, and especially sort of going through airports in the last couple of weeks. The joy is missing. Do you find joy is missing in life? So that's why we have our cracking up, because we moan, we complain.
We're going to be joyful, aren't we?
But we're going to be jolly, absolutely. We're going to be absolutely joyful. And like I said to the guy at the counter, cheese counter today,
the grumbly man.
No, life is too short. Please, let's find the joy in life, and let's be happy in the joys of life. And I know it's easier said than done, because I know that we're all going through, stuff right now, one way or another. But for goodness sake, if we don't have joy in our lives, we have nothing worth having at all.
And then sometimes you're in a very ordinary place and somebody surprises you and makes it all right again. I met a lovely man today who I sort of vaguely know he must be in his nearly 90, and he's got several impediments, can't walk very well, and he's still cleaning windows in the town and going up and down these ladders very precariously, and he's always shouting and smiling at people, and everybody thinks he's bonkers. He's lovely. He's full of happiness, and he just makes everybody smile, and he doesn't mind who he talks to or what he says, and it's great. It's just what you would need to meet.
There are those examples. Unfortunately, they're less and less and less. Chris, questions, comments?
Let's see. I think invisibility is both a self-protection and occasionally other people cast it upon us as a protection against infecting people with, quote, old age. That's from initials TEPRAKP.
Okay.
Then we have Rhonda, who says, I work in a clinic where adults bring in their elderly parents. I always make eye contact and make sure I speak directly to them. My aunt had told me years ago how she felt invisible. Leslie says, I live in a small town and everybody is pretty friendly.
Well, that's nice.
And then Wayne answered you, Rosemary. Wayne says, I was kind of a loner, and this was back in high school. And when I wasn't alone, I was teased a lot. Just being treated the way I was treated was rough. Like, are you gay? A million times asking and laughing at my gender. Bullies. I'd cry and felt invisible.
Yes, but look at you now, Wayne. You've come through that. And as much as we hate it, I think when we go through those kinds of things, it does help to make us stronger. And also it helps us to understand our sensitivity and to embrace our sensitivity. Because if you've never been picked on, if you've never been bullied, let's say, if you've never had that kind of heartache, then you can't possibly understand when other people are suffering from it too. So you might sympathize, but you can never empathize unless you've gone through it yourself. So, I think that we have to promote happy lives. I think we have to promote visibility. We have to promote joy in our lives. And I mean, Kay and I, right? I don't know how many years have we known each other?
82.
82.
No, since 1982.
Hey, I meant 82 years. Anyway, so that's whatever that is. I can't work it out actually. But we've
47 years.
We've had our ups, we've had our downs, you've been mad at me, I've been mad at you. You know what I'm saying? We've run the gamut of every emotion and what have you. But I think because we've always respected each other, and you've always seen the things that I've done and said that you might not have liked, perhaps sometimes, but you've always seen them as not coming from a mean-spirited person, but from somebody who is trying to help, and vice versa. And I've seen, when you've been there for me, and you've always been there to support me, and always been there to stand by me. And I think that friendship isn't about, friends just being happy with each other.
No, it's nothing to do with that.
When one says something, the other, oops, I'm never speaking to her again, sort of thing. But friendship is about, respecting the other person, and friendships grow stronger because of the ups and downs.
Yeah.
But I think we've always been able to give each other the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, that's a big thing, isn't it?
It's huge.
And a non-judgmental, just trying not to be so human and so shallow. So many people Oh dear me, they judge everybody by their own standards, and it's absolutely, it drives me nuts actually.
Well, giving people, I know my daughter has yelled at me more times than I can count. Why do you have to be so nice? Why do you always defend that person? Why do you,
Yeah, I've said it to you. Yeah. How did you do that?
how can you be friends with that person?
Yes,
So on. I
I
know, but I
couldn't
think
put up with it.
it's so important to give
Mm.
somebody the benefit of the doubt,
Yeah.
and to I mean, and there are people that friends that I've cut off in my life, but it takes me a lot
It's a long time. It takes a long time for you to do that.
It takes me a lot.
But also, when you're sitting in an airport and you're needing a drink, it's
and you're
you thought
waving your
of all
arms
those
about
people
and
and
you're
gave
shouting, "Hello,
all the benefit of the doubt.
can somebody help me? Excuse me, sir. Can you excuse me? Could you?" And they're just,
You
and it's
need
not
to
just,
take a loud hailer next time.
but it's not just the point is it's not me. It's all
No.
of those people who are in my shoes or have
Yes.
been in my
Yes.
shoes at that time. And
Yeah.
it's all of those people who just don't want to be involved. And I think
No.
more and more people, for whatever reason, have decided they don't want to be involved with their fellow human beings. They'd rather just, God forbid that woman wants something from me that I don't want to give, or God forbid she asks me to do something I don't want to do. And it's difficult for people, especially people who are disabled, especially people who are, quiet and they are afraid to use their voice for whatever reason.
Yeah. It's very
And
hard.
I just think that if we went out and about in our daily lives, just being nice, just be nice. Why can't we
Just
just
taking
be nice?
time. Take time.
Yeah. I mean, again, standing in this line, there were a couple of people grumbling about having to wait. And I'm the one saying, go ahead with me. I don't mind waiting. I mean, I need to get back and do stuff. But at the same time,
Mhm.
if there's only one guy at the counter, just cut it out. Just chill out and just be.
Yeah.
And, as Greg would say, your world needs kindness, your world needs gentleness, is what he said. And there doesn't seem to be any of that anymore. And it breaks my heart to say it, it breaks my heart to think it. But then I think of all the people, I listen to this story, okay? So yesterday, Reese was very upset. You can't leave yet, you've got to stay to the weekend, so on and so forth. Okay, fine. So he's getting ready for school, and then he gets his iPad, and he's a friend of his showed him how to do it, and he pulls up. He's made this. What is it? He's made like a piece of paper, and it's an adoption. It says on the top of this, on his iPad, it says adoption notice, and then underneath there, it gives his name, Reese Astle is adopting. And then underneath that, Reese Astle is adopting Rosemary Altea. That's me.
Oh.
So then he tells me,
Oh, that's cute.
he just before he shows it to me, he says, just sign this. And it's one of those where you can scribble on it, right, with your finger. So I sign it, and he says, okay, now I've adopted you, Mosey, which means that you have to do everything I say and you're not leaving.
Oh, that's nice.
And
That's
I
nice.
mean,
Oh,
that just brings joy, right? It's just
yeah.
fun and it's nice, and it's his way of saying to me, no, you're not going anywhere else. You have to stay with me.
That's
And
so nice.
I mean, we can learn a lot from our kids, can't we? We can learn an awful lot from our kids
Yeah.
if we, if we do that. Anyway, sorry, Chris.
No, it's just lovely. This warmth. Mm.
All right. Well, the last comment we received before we talked about the color purple was Judith saying, I know the poem. There's also a book with that same title.
Mm.
My sister gave my mother a copy not long before she became totally disabled. I loved it and read to her.
Mm.
Oh, nice, nice. Oh, I don't know whether the book is the same. It's probably the same as the poem, but I mean, it's an anonymous thing. Nobody knows who wrote it, but I love the idea of being defiant
What do you mean?
in
The
a
idea.
being defiant of the fact that when you're old you become invisible. I am never. My daughter said to me the other day, she said, you don't look your age, you don't act your age.
No.
And at one point, when you said to somebody, you don't act your age, it's time you started acting your age.
No, sod that.
I've never, ever acted my age, I don't think. And I've
It
never-
reminds me of that film, Lady in the Van with Maggie Smith.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
What a film. What a film.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was great, wasn't she?
Yeah,
in that
she was.
film.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
yeah. So, Chris, is that it then? Are we done with all the comments?
Judith says, when I am out and around others, I always talk. Most people enjoy joining in. I'm such a talker. I speak to almost everyone. Ha.
and me.
Okay, then.
What do you think? Did COVID start this downward trend?
I don't know.
Oh, I think people use that as a reason.
You know something? I think that so many people dove into COVID.
Yeah. What they used it, didn't they?
Yeah, sort of use it as an excuse to not be sociable, and nobody talks about COVID anymore. Have you noticed that? Nobody mentions it anymore. I mean, it was all we thought about for 2 years or 3 years or whatever it was, and now it's never mentioned. It's all of a sudden it's like it's disappeared. Excuse me, but it's I don't know that COVID started it. It probably encouraged it, maybe, but I think
I think it gave people an out. They used it for what they needed it for.
yeah.
And,
I remember a few years ago, a good friends of mine, and he was a patient of mine, this guy, and he was having all kinds of surgery. I went every day for months to the hospital to be with his wife, support his wife. When we were good friends, we'd go to each other's houses for dinner and so on and so forth. And so and I can remember she called me and she said, I just want you to let you know that we're having a party, a summer party. We've never done it before. I said, oh, great. And she starts to tell me about all of the people who are coming and all the people she's invited and the food that they're having. And it sounded fabulous. It sounded really, really great. And I'm saying, oh, wow, that sounds really good. I was just about to say, let me know if I can help you in any way. And she said, but you're not invited. It was like,
that. She said that.
yes. And it was like, poof.
Why?
Because I had a friend at the time who she didn't want to come. I said, well, afterwards I thought, well, why didn't you just say, but he's not invited? But no. Just want you to let you know, because you're going to hear about it. Everybody's going to be talking about it. You're not invited. Wow. And then it actually happened to me twice in my lifetime.
Only twice?
About 4 or 5 years ago, I had other friends, good friends, I'd been there for them a lot. They were, I'm not going to tell you the situation, but I thought we were good friends, and we'd sort of have dinner and so on and so forth. And, and I thought that we were close friends. Anyway, they called me up this particular day to tell me that their son was getting married, and it was going to be this, and they were going to have it there, and it was going to be, and I'm actually thinking in my mind, how can I figure out how to get there, because they lived
Don't, I'm going to be upset.
she said, so I just want you to know, we're only inviting family and good friends. So you're not invited. That was
That's harsh. That's harsh.
That's the second time. I was like, okay then. Because I thought that we were good friends. You never can tell, can you? You never know.
You never know.
You never tell how other people feel about you or how other people think about you. But it was a bit of a smack in the eye. It was okay then. I guess I'm not as good a friend as I thought I was. And that might well be on me. I might not have been as good a friend as I thought I'd be. But anyway.
I don't have any expectations.
Well, it's the difference between, as I used to teach you all years ago. Do you remember?
Yes, yes. Yes.
You can be hopeful.
Yes, yes.
And if you're hopeful that things are going to work out, or if you're hopeful that your friends are good friends, or if you're hopeful about the different things in life, you can be disappointed, but, well, if you expect, you're going to be devastated.
Don't expect. No.
Don't expect. Be hopeful, but don't expect.
So I was coming out of my parking place next to my flat. It was dusk. It was a pleasant evening in a pleasant South Yorkshire town. Everything was nice and cushy. So I'm walking along. I come through the gate, and there are two men and a 7-year-old boy standing opposite on the other side of the road staring at me. So I looked behind me because I thought, they're not surely looking at me because I must be invisible. No, I didn't say that. They're not surely looking at me. And then they started shouting at me. Hi, we need to talk to you. So I said, surely, yeah, come over. I'm just going to go inside, but I can give whatever. What do you need? Are you lost? No, but we think you are. What? I said, no, I know where I live. You get off and live where you live, and I'll go where I live. Okay, bye. No, we need to tell you you're lost. You need to come and talk to us about how we're going to save you. I said, I'm so safe. I have to tell you, I'm so safe that I'll come over to you and tell you how safe I am. So they said, and I said, I'm so safe. I work as a spiritual healer. Do you need some help? Do you need any help tonight? And I'm being really a bit naughty, really, because I know they, by now, they're like this. Woo, woo. And
it reminds me of when I first came to Florida a few years ago, and there were two guys. I don't know if they were Mormons or if they were Jehovah or whatever, that that kind of thing. And I feel, I think these people are so brave.
Yes.
And they really do believe in what they're doing, and you've got to admire them for that. But I can remember them knocking on the door, and there were two of them, and I opened the door and I said hello, and they said hello, and then they start with whatever it is, God loves you, and you need
I know, thanks.
all of that. And I said, and I put my hand up and I said, can I just say, I'm a spiritual medium and I talk to dead people. One of these guys ran.
Yes.
Ran the driveway. I think I've told you this story before. Ran at the driveway, ran at the street, and the other guy sort of started slowly inching backwards.
Yeah.
I mean, I was willing to talk to them.
I know.
about that. You would have thought that they were faced with the devil
I
incarnate.
know.
I know that
They did warn me. They did warn me what I was doing.
yeah. Oh, really? They said you don't do that, whatever.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's I don't know how we got onto that, but you know,
Sorry, it's
so
my fault.
I mean, I think we need to be more accepting. It's like all of this political stuff that's going on in the States right now. Nobody seems to want to accept or to listen to what people on the other side believe. You know, if you're Republican, they don't want to listen to the Democrats, and if they're Democrats, they definitely don't want to listen to the Republican. And there's so much discontent. There's so much disrespect for each other. There's so much. Nobody's listening to anybody. They just want to.
Yes, true.
What they do is because they're so keen on getting their own point across, they start talking louder and louder, as if as if they're going to drown you out.
Yeah.
And what they don't realize is that the more you shout at people and the more you're in somebody's face, the less they're going to listen to you. And
William has a comment.
yes, go ahead.
William says a lack of compassion can be as vulgar as an excess of tears.
I think a lack of compassion, I like that, William, but a lack of compassion can be worse than a deluge of tears, to be honest, because, you know, if you don't have compassion, well, what are you? You're just an empty shell, aren't you? You're just a husk of a person. How can you not have compassion for the person who's hurting, or for the person who, you know, needs help, or for the woman in the wheelchair? Or how can you not have compassion for what people are going through? You know, whether you agree with them or not, whether you agree with political views or religious views or whatever it is. I mean, you know, why can't you just give a moment and listen to another person's point of view without them shouting at you in your face and trying to ram
Or,
it down your throat?
or resting the luggage on your head.
Or rest it. Yeah. I mean, that was just, it was unbelievable.
Oh,
My head is bent, my body's bent. I'm trying to push him off, and his whole body is weighed down on top of me, as if he did. I mean, he didn't acknowledge the wheelchair. He didn't acknowledge me as a person. All he could care about was, you know, getting to talk to whoever it was in the front of the line or whatever. I mean, so there are so many people who are like that, but I think that it's good to air these things. It's good to talk about these things. It's good for us.
Don't you think, though, that everybody needs to be more aware of the spatial awareness, and about what's around them, how
Right.
they're moving within it, and how much you're including what's coming within your space, and almost like to be more inclusive, just be more inclusive of everything around you. And
Well, I mean, when you go to a public place, right? People are on their iPhones. They're on their cell phones. They're whatever it is, iPads, or they're, you know, or they're clicking away like this, and they're not even. And a lot of people have earbuds in their ears. Then I mean, they're not aware in any way, shape, or form of anything other than this little tiny screen that they've made their life. And since when, as human beings, do we want our lives to be that narrow, that small, that we miss that
everything.
person around us? You know, and we had Gary. We did Everything Is Attitude with Al a few days ago, and we had my friend Gary on, who talked about, you know, his actual face to face with his angel.
Yeah.
I mean, had he had his iPods in his ears, and he's, busy, he would have never seen that angel. How do we expect to see our angels? How do we expect to see anything amazing going on around us when we're not even aware of the person sitting next to us? I mean,
It's so retrograde, isn't it? Everything's sort of, it's quite depressing, really.
yeah. And so I think, we listen to this, we agree with it, whatever. But I think each of us, it's the responsibility of every one of us when we go out to smile, to say hi, to be, obviously you've got to keep yourself safe. You're not always in a safe environment, but when you're in amongst a group of people, you get into an elevator, for instance.
Oh,
There might be 4 or 5 other people in the elevator and nobody says anything
it's awful, isn't it?
except me.
Yes.
I will not be put in a situation like that
No.
without not saying hi to the little
It's
kid
ridiculous, isn't it?
in the stroller. I will not. I was in an elevator the other day and there's this little kid in a stroller with the most beautiful big brown eyes, and at first we're in the elevator and nobody's saying anything. I look at this kid and I say, "Hi, how are you?" and waving my fingers, and he looks at me and he waves his fingers, and then I say, "Do you know you've got gorgeous eyes, right?" And then his mother says something behind him. Nobody else is joining in or responding or even showing.
Sad for them.
Oh gosh, it's so sad because they're missing out in the joy. They're missing the joys of life, and that's what happens when we've got our, phones, the earbuds or whatever they call them. I don't own a pair of those. I won't have them. I'm too busy. I'm too nosy. I want to know what's going on in this world of ours, and I want to enjoy it. And if I see an old lady or an old man hobbling along, I'll go and say to them, "Are you okay? Do you need some help?" Or or if I see kids playing, I want to say to the parents, "They're beautiful. You have beautiful kids."
And without getting a quizzical look back,
Yeah. I mean, and people look at you sometimes like you're crazy, but you see, I am the epitome of the old lady who wears purple.
Yes,
So
that's
I've been
good.
practicing for all these years. I've got it down to a fine art.
Yes, you certainly have. I do remember.
Chris.
We have a comment from William again saying it's so hard to communicate with 5 sensory humans versus multi-sensory humans. There's such a great divide these days.
Yeah, you're right, William. I agree with you. Totally right. But we can overcome it. We can absolutely overcome it. I mean, Kay, I'm sort of going to put you on the spot.
Really?
Yeah, just think about it I'll give you a minute. We're getting on to time's nearly up anyway, but think of one experience, if you can, one moment in your life where you either surprise somebody else by being spontaneous with them, or somebody else surprised you by being spontaneous with you. You think about that. I'm going to tell you my story, and some of you have heard this story before. I was going to the bank. I parked the car, went into the bank. When I came out, there was a car parked next to my car, and the windows were down. And there was there were 2 ladies one at the driver's side and one in the passenger side. The lady in the passenger side, who happened to be closest to my car, was absolutely sobbing and sobbing and sobbing. She was just crying her eyes out. She was really distraught. And the woman in the driver's side was not saying much except, "You need to stop," or "shut up," or whatever it was. There was not a lot of sympathy coming back. And I didn't know the situation, so I couldn't, but all I heard was this woman who was in the deepest distress. And so I walked between the cars because that was where my car was. But instead of going to my car, I turned and I put my hands in the window and I grabbed this lady's hands in mine, and very gently and very quietly I said to her, "How can I help you? Please don't cry. Tell me how I can help you. What can I do for you? What can I do to," and they looked at me, and the woman in the driver's seat looked at me like I was a crazy person. And the woman who was crying, sort of the tears dried on her face because she was so shocked. And then I said, "Tell me, talk to me, tell me." And the woman in the driver's seat started talking for her. So I very nicely and very gently said to the lady in the driver's seat, put my hand up and I said, "Would you mind if we let her talk?" And I said to the woman who was crying, "Can you tell me what's wrong?" And she was telling me that, they wanted to take these drugs, but she didn't want to take them because it made her depressed and it gave her, she had funny issues, and they wanted to put her into a home and she wanted to go into this home. And I listened to her, and as I was talking to her, I'm holding her hands and I'm just very gently stroking her hands. And then the woman in the driver's seat realized and was probably listening for the first time, because she was probably used to this and had grown tired of listening to it, but she was listening for the first time, and she said to me, "It's true, we don't know what to do. The doctors are saying this and that and so on and so forth." And all I could do was say to her, "Well, I'm going to send you some healing. I'm a healer and I'm going to send you some healing, and I hope you're going to feel better very, very soon." And this woman grabbed hold of my hands and she just said, thank you," bursting into tears again, but for a different reason. "Thank you for listening to me. Thank you for listening to me." Now, most people would have walked by that car and that whole situation would have been invisible to them. Now, I get that people don't always know how to deal with situations like that. So, the embarrassment or what should I do or whatever, I get that. But just to reach out when you see another human being in pain or in distress and just hold their hand and just say, "I'm here for you. I'm listening. I'm here for you," makes a huge difference to other people. And it also made me feel good too.
But you understood how to deal with that
Yeah,
situation, however it would unfold,
yes.
and
A lot of people don't know how.
many people wouldn't know how, and they
That's
would be fearful of making themselves feel inadequate or foolish. And
yeah.
instead of wondering how, instead of casting caution to the wind and diving in and helping.
We allow fear to freeze
Yeah,
us. Don't we? We
yeah,
allow fear to
yeah,
stop us from doing
yeah,
and saying so many things, and
yeah,
that's a great shame. So, did you think of an example? Did you?
yeah. It's been playing on my mind for a few days actually. Um, it's a lot of years since I've worked in special needs. We call them special needs schools here in the UK, and it was probably the year 2005 or 6, and I was working in a school in the local town of Scunthorpe called, I can't remember what it was called, and I was working as a supply support in the art department with some young kids of varying, we call them disabilities, but that's what it was. And
Various
pardon?
various different issues.
Yes, yes. And this young man, he was physically fine. He was a well-built boy. He was tall and stocky and a little bit alone, set aside, and doing very good work, fine, chatting to people, fine. But I kept looking over at him and wondering if he was okay. And so at the end of the lesson, I walked over and looked at his work and was talking about his work. And he just looked at me and stood up and leaned towards me and whispered, "I am alone and I am not always here." And I said, okay, where do you think you want to be? He said, I want to be visible. I want people to see me.
Oh,
I'm like, oh, I thought, got to get a grip, Kay. And
but he obviously trusted you
he
enough to tell
trusted
you.
me.
Yeah.
So we chatted about his work.
And
We
you
did,
saw him,
and I saw him.
and he knew that you'd seen him. And I think that's important. I think that's a great thing to close on. We will go back to
Yeah.
Chris the comments, but
Yeah,
we have to see people. We have
yeah,
to. It's nice if we can see ourselves, but we have to see other people, and that other
yeah.
people that they're
And
seeing.
we often see ourselves through other people,
Yes.
mostly, I think.
Yeah. Chris,
That's a good
anything
point.
else? Any other questions or comments?
The last comment I have here is from Annika. Annika says, I always smile at people and often engage in conversation. It might be an occupational habit as I am a massage therapist and my business is touching people.
Well, you've got an advantage, I think. But I think, as I've said, I think, we've sort of skirted around this topic, but I think it's a really good topic because I think that if we can help just one person to understand how important it is, not only to be seen,
Yeah.
but also to see others
Mm.
and to acknowledge others, whether it's with a small smile or a nod or simple acknowledgement, how are you doing today? Or can I get you anything? Whatever it is, a small thing. And small things go an awfully long way.
Yeah, they do. They gather momentum, don't they?
Yeah, especially to people who do feel that they are absolutely not seen. Okay, that's it. How did it go so fast, Kate? We've gone well over the hour.
Crazy time.
But we shall be back next month with another cracking up. So thank you to all of you for joining. Thank you to Chris. Thanks to Grey Eagle, of course, who is always there. And Kay, especially thanks to you.
Thanks to you.
It wouldn't be cracking up without you, would it? I mean,
Thanks for the invite.
we both need to be here. So we'll say good night for now. Good night, sleep tight. Please, everybody, have a very blessed rest of the day. Have a very blessed weekend. And we shall see you next time. Say bye, Kay. Bye.
Bye.